David decides to buy. He finds a house for $300,000. He drops his entire $60,000 as a 20% down payment and locks in a 30-year fixed mortgage at 6.5% on the remaining $240,000. His monthly principal and interest? $1,517. But wait, there's more. Add in $250 for property taxes and $130 for insurance. David is looking at $1,900 a month out the door, and that doesn't even cover the grass seed or the light bulbs. Ryan, on the other hand, rents. He finds a nearly identical place for $1,400 a month. No down payment needed. He takes that $60,000 cash and plops it into an S&P 500 index fund, which historically earns about 8% a year. On day one, Ryan's monthly costs are $500 lower than David's. He has no taxes, no repairs, and a fat investment portfolio growing while he sleeps. In year one, Ryan looks like the smartest guy in the room. But there's an invisible divide forming. Every dollar David pays toward principal is slowly buying him a piece of an asset. Every dollar Ryan pays? It's gone the second it leaves his bank account. Fast forward 3 years. Ryan is living the easy life. The furnace dies? He calls the landlord. The roof leaks? Not his problem. The dishwasher starts smoking? Someone shows up to fix it, and Ryan doesn't pay a dime. His costs are locked at rent, a tiny $15 insurance policy, and utilities. No surprises. Plus, that $60,000 investment? Without adding another penny, it's grown to about $75,600. Ryan is feeling pretty good. David? It's a different story. Day one cost him $9,000 just in closing costs, fees for appraisals, titles, and the bank. Then the fun started. Maintenance usually runs 1% to 2% of the home's value. That's $3,000 to $6,000 a year just to keep the house standing. And here is the part that really hurts. In the early years of a 6.5% mortgage, you aren't really paying off the house. In year one, David paid $18,200 in mortgage payments, but $15,500 of that was pure interest. Only about $2,700 actually went toward his debt. That interest disappears just like rent, but people rarely talk about it that way. By the end of year 3, Ryan has spent about $52,400 on rent and has a $75,600 portfolio. David has burned through a fortune in taxes and interest. He's only paid down about $8,600 of the actual loan principal, though to be fair, the house has also appreciated about 10% in those 3 years, giving him roughly $100,000 in total equity if he sold today. The catch, a chunk of that gets eaten by realtor fees and closing costs if he actually tries to cash out. At this stage, Ryan's lead is real, and it's not even close. But here is where the tide starts to turn. Ryan's lease comes up for renewal. The landlord raises the rent by 4%. That's only $56 more a month. Ryan barely notices. But then it happens again. And again. $1,400 becomes $1,456. Then $1,514. Then $1,575. It's a slow creep that quietly eats his budget. Now look at David. His principal and interest payment is $1,517. That was the number on month 1. It's the number on month 120. It'll be the number on month 360. A mortgage is a fixed cost that inflation actually makes cheaper over time. In year 1, David felt the weight. By year 10, it's just a normal bill. By year 20, it'll feel like a bargain. Around year 6, the math does a complete 180. David's house has been appreciating. At a modest 3.5% annual growth, that $300,000 house is now worth about $369,000. Meanwhile, his loan balance has dropped from $240,000 to about $221,000. David is now sitting on roughly $148,000 in equity. Here's the secret sauce: David only put $60,000 down, but he's getting appreciation gains on the full $300,000 value. That's leverage. His money is working harder than Ryan's, but with a catch. Ryan's index fund has grown to about $95,000, nice, but he only gets returns on the cash he actually has. Meanwhile, Ryan's rent has crossed $1,700 per month. He's paying almost as much as David, but David is buying freedom, and Ryan is just buying another 30 days in someone else's house. Now, and this is critical, what if Ryan actually does what the gurus tell him to do? Invests the difference? That $500 per month gap, dumped into the same index fund every month for 30 years at 8%, grows to about $745,000. That's a real number, and Ryan would be in great shape. But here's the honest truth: most rent and invest content skips. Most people don't actually do this. They rent, see the surplus, and spend it on a nicer car, more travel, or just lifestyle creep. The invest the difference plan only works if you have the discipline to do it for 360 straight months. Miss that, and the math collapses. The real tragedy of renting isn't the monthly check, it's the finish line. Or rather, the lack of one. There is no month 361 for a renter where the payments stop. When you're 35, you pay rent. When you're 70 and retired on a fixed income, you're still paying rent, except now, thanks to inflation at 4%, that $1,400 rent has ballooned to over $5,300 a month. Let that sink in. The same apartment. Same four walls. $5,000 a month, every month, until you die. At the 30-year mark, David makes his final mortgage payment. He's done. He owns a home likely worth over $840,000, and his housing cost drops to just taxes and insurance, maybe $700, $900 a month, depending on how much taxes have crept up. Ryan is still writing that massive $5,000 plus check every single month for the rest of his life. Is buying always better? No. If you're moving in less than 5 years, the closing costs will eat you alive. If you live in a hyper-expensive city like Manhattan where a tiny condo costs $1.2 million but rents for $3,000, the math breaks. If your job requires you to relocate often, renting buys you flexibility that's worth real money. And let's be honest, renting only works if you actually invest the difference every month, without fail. Most people don't. Ryan and David both thought they were being smart. Ryan wanted to stay nimble, David wanted to build roots. But the winner, assuming both stayed put for 30 years, was the one who locked in his biggest expense in a world where everything else gets more expensive. The real trap isn't renting, and it isn't buying. It's making a massive life decision based on a monthly number without looking at the 10, 20, or 30-year trajectory. That 4% rent increase feels like nothing today, but over a lifetime, it's a fortune. If you're thinking about buying a car to go with that new house, you might think paying cash is the move, but that math might surprise you too. We'll dive into that in the next video. If this helped you see the hidden math of real estate, hit that subscribe button and join the community. We're all about running the numbers so you don't have to guess. See you in the next one.